They came back. After everything, after the years away, after the reality television, after the moments where it genuinely seemed like the Bella Twins' chapter of professional wrestling was permanently closed and sealed and filed away in the section of WWE history labeled legendary but finished, Nikki and Brie Bella walked back into a WWE arena on March 20th, 2026, stood across from the Women's Tag Team Champions, and took those titles. They took them clean. They took them in front of a Smackdown audience that was not fully prepared for what it was witnessing until it was already happening, and then erupted in a way that arenas only erupt when something genuinely unexpected and genuinely emotional lands in real time. And if you were not screaming at your screen when those titles changed hands, then I genuinely do not know what kind of wrestling fan you are, because that moment was everything this industry is supposed to produce and rarely does. Tell me in the comments right now where you were when the Bella Twins won the Women's Tag Team Championships on SmackDown, March 20th, 2026. I want to know if you saw it live, if you found out after, if you lost your mind, or if somehow you were not watching. Drop it below right now. To understand the full weight of what happened on March 20th, you cannot just look at the match itself. You cannot isolate those minutes of television from the context that surrounds them, because the context is everything. The Bella Twins returning to WWE in 2026 was not a simple nostalgia play, not a one-off appearance designed to pop a rating and generate a social media moment before disappearing back into whatever outside projects they had been building. This was a return with intention. This was two women who had spent years away from this company, watching the division they helped build evolved into something genuinely excellent, watching the Women's Tag Team Championships become a title with real prestige and real history behind it, and deciding that they had one more chapter to write, that the story was not finished, that there was something left to prove and something left to accomplish, and that the time to come back and accomplish it was now. The reaction to their return in the weeks leading up to March 20th told you everything you needed to know about the specific place the Bella Twins occupy in the hearts of the WWE audience. This is not universal. Nothing in WWE ever is. There were people who questioned whether returning veterans should be taking spots from the talented women currently building their careers on the main roster. That conversation is legitimate and deserves to be had. But alongside that conversation was a genuine outpouring of love for two performers who came up in an era when the women's division in WWE was treated as an afterthought, and who fought, sometimes literally fought, for the respect and the time and the opportunity that the division now enjoys as a birthright. The Bella Twins did not just perform in a less enlightened era. They pushed against the limitations of that era in ways that helped create the conditions for what came after.
Trivia question for the WrestlingChord community, and I want to see this answered from memory. In what year did Nikki Bella set the record for the longest reign as Divas Champion, and how many days did that reign last? Drop the number in the comments. The Smackdown on March 20th had a specific energy from the opening moments that experienced wrestling viewers learned to recognize as the energy of a show where something significant is going to happen. It is difficult to articulate exactly what creates that feeling. Part of it is crowd energy. Part of it is the way the broadcast is paced and structured. Part of it is simply the accumulated weight of the build coming to a head on a specific night. Whatever combination of factors produces that feeling, it was present from the beginning of this show, and it intensified as the evening progressed toward the moment everyone had been anticipating. The Bella Twins' entrance on this night was handled with exactly the right level of ceremony. Not overdone to the point where the moment collapses under its own weight, not understated to the point where the significance fails to register. The music hit, and the crowd responded with that full-body recognition reaction that only comes when something deeply familiar lands after an extended absence. The years away had not diminished the connection. If anything, the time had clarified it, had stripped away whatever complicated feelings the audience might have had about various aspects of their previous run, and left something cleaner and more fundamental, which was simply the acknowledgement that these two women matter to this history, and that seeing them back in this arena felt right. They looked incredible. That needs to be stated plainly because it is relevant to the story the match was going to tell. The Bella twins walking to that ring on March 20th looked like athletes, not like returning legends graciously accepting a ceremonial opportunity, like competitors who had been preparing for this specific moment and who were physically ready to back up whatever statement they were about to make in that ring. Comment section question. Be completely honest. Before the match started on March 20th, did you actually believe the Bella twins were going to win the championships, or did you think this was going to be a feel-good moment that ended with the champions retaining? Tell me your honest pre-match prediction. The champions coming into this match had their own story worth acknowledging. They had built their reign with the kind of consistent quality that women's tag team championship reigns require to establish genuine legitimacy for the titles. Every defense had added something to the record of what those championships represent. Every match had demonstrated that the titles were being held by a team that took the responsibility of being champions seriously. Walking into this match against the Bella twins, they were not a transitional team positioned to make the returning legends look good on the way out. They were legitimate champions,
who had every reason to believe they were going to walk out of this match the same way they walked in. That competitive balance was essential to what the match became. If this had been a squash, if the champions had been positioned as obstacles rather than genuine opponents, the Bella twins' victory would have felt hollow. What made it mean something was that the champions brought everything they had, and the Bella twins had to dig into something real to overcome it. The result was earned, not gifted. And that distinction is everything when it comes to how a championship change lands with an audience. The early portion of the match was technically sharp in a way that immediately answered any questions about whether the Bella twins had the ring rust that extended absences typically produce. Nikki, in particular, moved with a crispness and a physical intensity that communicated immediately that whatever she had been doing during her time away from this ring preparation had been a significant part of it. Her strikes had the weight of someone who had not just maintained her conditioning, but had specifically worked on the tools she would need for this match. The power moves that were always central to her offense were executed with the kind of precision that only comes from dedicated preparation. Brie's work in the match carried that different quality that has always defined her contribution to the team. Where Nikki brings power and aggression, Brie brings pace and technical execution, and the specific kind of ring intelligence that comes from years of experience in championship matches. Her sequences in this match were some of the most technically impressive work she has produced in her career, and the combination of her contributions with Nikki's created that complete tag team picture that the best teams always present. Trivia for the comments section. What is the name of Nikki Bella's finishing move, and what is the name of Brie Bella's signature running knee strike that she uses on opponents in the corner? Both answers, please. Let me see who knows their Bella twins history. The moment that turned this match from a competitive championship contest into something with genuine historical stakes was the heat sequence on Brie. The champions isolated her with the kind of sustained tag team offense that separates excellent tag teams from merely good ones, cutting the ring off, making quick tags, preventing Brie from finding the angle she needed to get to her corner. The crowd during this sequence was doing that specific thing they do when a babyface is in genuine peril in a tag team match, building the hot tag anticipation with increasing urgency, reacting to every near escape with that collective intake of breath that signals they are fully invested in the outcome. What made the heat sequence particularly effective was that Brie was not passive in it. She was fighting back constantly,
creating those near-escape moments that keep a crowd invested rather than deflated, showing the resilience that has always been one of her most compelling qualities as a performer. Every time it looked like she might be able to reach Nikki, the champions cut it off with something smart and something physical, and the crowd's investment ratcheted up another level. The hot tag, when it finally came, was the kind of moment that tag team wrestling exists to produce.
Nikki Bella getting that tag and coming into that ring with the energy of someone who had been watching her sister absorb punishment for several minutes and had spent every one of those minutes loading up a response was an emotional release that the crowd met at full volume. Her sequence coming off that tag was as good a hot tag performance as you will see in the women's tag team division, and the crowd rewarded every moment of it with the noise it deserved. Comment section. What was your single favorite moment from the Bella Twins' performance in this championship match? Be specific. Which spot, which sequence, which individual move hit the hardest for you personally? I want details in the comments. The finishing sequence of this match was constructed with the kind of dramatic architecture that championship changes require to feel genuinely monumental. Near fall after near fall, with the crowd reacting to each one at a level that kept escalating rather than plateauing, building toward the specific moment where the 3 count would land and everything would change. The champions fighting desperately to preserve their reign, the Bella Twins fighting with everything they had accumulated over a career that was now arriving at one of its defining moments. The rack attack. When Nikki Bella set up and hit the rack attack, and the impact registered, and the cover happened, and the referee's hand hit the mat for 3, the arena produced that specific sound that championship changes produce when the crowd has fully invested in the result. It is not just cheering, it is not just noise, it is the sound of an emotional investment paying off, of a story reaching a point of resolution that the audience has been wanting and waiting for, of something that was supposed to happen finally happening in the way it was supposed to happen. Nikki and Brie Bella stood in that ring with the Women's Tag Team Championships, and the image was one of those images that immediately feels like it belongs in a montage. 2 women who came up in a division that did not fully respect them, who fought for every opportunity they ever got, who helped change the conversation about what women's wrestling in WWE could and should be, standing at the top of that division with titles that represent everything the division has become. The symmetry of it was perfect. The emotional resonance of it was enormous. The tears were real, and the crowd's response to those tears was real, and the entire moment had the texture of something genuine rather than manufactured. The significance of this championship win extends beyond the personal achievement of 2 beloved performers returning to glory. It sends a message about what the Women's Tag Team Championships represent in 2026 as opposed to where they started. When those titles were introduced, the division was still establishing itself. By March 20th, 2026, they had become titles with enough history and enough prestige that winning them in a contested match on Smackdown could serve as the capstone moment of a Hall of Fame career. That is the progress the division has made. That is what the women who fought for this division over the past decade actually achieved. Trivia, and this is the final question for this video, and it is one for the true historians in this community. The Bella Twins have been involved in WWE programming across multiple different eras. In what year did both Nikki and Brie Bella make their WWE debut, and what was the name of the team or concept they were originally presented under when they first appeared on television? Real ones know this without looking it up. What comes next for the Bella Twins as champions is the conversation that the entire division is now having. Every team in the women's tag division has to recalibrate around the fact that the championships are now held by 2 of the most recognizable and most beloved names in the history of women's wrestling. The targets on their backs are enormous. The challenges are going to come from every direction, and the question of how long this reign lasts and how it ends and what it means for the division going forward is one of the most interesting ongoing storylines in WWE right now. For the champions who lost those titles on March 20th, the path forward requires a response that demonstrates what kind of team they are when things go wrong. The best performers in this industry are defined not by their victories, but by how they respond to their most significant losses. This loss was significant. What comes next for them will tell us a great deal about their ceiling. For everyone watching who has been a fan of the Bella Twins since the beginning, since those early days when the division was fighting for respect and these 2 women were at the center of that fight,
March 20th, 2026 was a gift. It was a reminder that careers can have multiple peaks, that the story does not have to end before you are ready for it to end, that coming back and doing something meaningful and real is possible, even after years away, if you are willing to do the work that the moment requires. If you watch this entire breakdown from beginning to end, you are exactly the kind of wrestling fan that this channel was built to serve. Share this video with every Bella Twins fan you know and every women's wrestling fan you know, because this moment deserves to be celebrated as loudly and as widely as possible. Subscribe to WrestlingChord if you are not already part of this community, and hit
the notification bell, because every major moment in WWE gets this level of analysis right here. Leave every thought you have in the comments below, because I read them all, and I respond to the best ones. The Bella Twins are women's tag team champions, and WrestlingChord was here to break down every single second of how it happened.